Welcome to the Outdoors and Holistic Project, the podcast edition with City Girl in Nature. I'm Chrisia, and today I'm joined by Jason from the Electric Tribe and Rhiannon from Sacred Herbal Teas. Thank you guys for coming today.
Thank you for having
Yeah,
us.
it's a pleasure. Thank you.
I'm slightly gassed that I got you both here. I've been wanting to kind of do something with you guys from last year, and seeing you guys online, mainly with the stuff that you're doing and that we're like the same age group. Just
Yeah,
felt like wow, there's other people like me out there.
for real, for
um,
real.
but could you tell me a bit more about what is the Electric Tribe and what is Sacred Herbal Teas?
Yeah, sure. I think it all started without the name. So the Electric Tribe Sacred Herbal Tea was something that kind of developed over time. It was something really just a passion for being in nature, being outdoors, creating with food. Is something that we both shared from when we first started seeing each other, and we both had a similar passion for it. So we started, going into the woods together. We started, just cooking together, and we realized that we do share the same passion for creating, for instance, electric foods. We would often cook together, and there's about this time was also when I got into the alkaline plant-based diet, and I started realizing, there's electricity in our body, so I want to feed my body the right foods. And this is kind of how the electric tribe started, because it was all about electricity within our body. And yeah, so this is how the electric tribe started for me. I was actually inspired by her sacred herbal tea. She started her page before me, and yeah, I was just really inspired by what she was doing, and I saw how she was sharing her passion for herbs, for nature with the people. And I was a bit, I don't know, nervous. I felt like she kind of took the first step. She was really brave, and I didn't really feel too comfortable put myself out there. And it was her and my sister who told me, like, look, you're doing so much, just start sharing it. And then yeah, I started sharing it online as well. And the most important thing for both of us, I believe, was to kind of share it with people that also want to learn more about nature, just want to spend time in nature. It wasn't really, we didn't really have too much of an idea what exactly it is that we want to share with them at first. It was something that, people kind of realize over time, like, oh, they know something that I might not know. I'm interested in something, and they might have a bit more expertise. So we kind of just went with the flow, and we realized, oh, there's actually quite a big interest in these kind of things that seem quite natural to us. And yeah, this is how it came about.
So cool to hear that. It was only 4 years ago, I guess.
Yeah.
Around the same time as me, I guess.
Oh, wow.
There must have been something in the air.
Definitely. I think it was
Yeah.
like around that time of like the lockdown. So a lot of people started to go a bit more inwards and find like their real passions. A lot of people weren't like working anymore. So you actually had time to think, okay, like what do I actually like to do? And yeah, I think for me, I always had like a big interest in science. Like I did my bachelor's degree in forensic science, but it was very heavy in like chemistry, biochemistry. So I was just really interested in how the body works. And then, yeah, I started to get more into like alternative healing methods. And then, like a bit later on, I actually tried DMT, which is like a psychedelic. It's like plant medicine. And then I think for me, it kind of just opened up that door. And then, yeah, like Jason and I connected. And then, yeah, I think because it was lockdown, we spent a lot of time at home cooking, out in nature, because there wasn't really much else to do. So it kind of just sparked, a little seed was sown, and then now it's just grown into something really beautiful. So, yeah.
I naturally thought as well that wow, how come you guys like you're a couple, right? But it's so fitting what you do. Like I was like wow, like it makes so much sense.
Yeah.
And now nowadays as well, I'm noticing it a bit more. Like people are coming together, whether it's couples, friends, with the same interest, more so as well, and like kind of empowering each other as well. Because I certainly felt empowered by both of you as well, and coming across you. But Jason, you mentioned about your sister. Am I right to say she's the one that kind of inspired you also to
Yeah.
get into,
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. She's my twin sister, actually. So she's 1 hour older than me. So my whole life, it kind of felt like I have an older sister, although we're twins. I took my time, and yeah, she always inspired me. She's a bit more outgoing, a bit more, I'd say, brave. She always, takes the first step, and yeah, she's really like, she loves being in front of the camera. So I just felt a bit, I don't know, I always thought it wasn't really for me, being in front of the camera. So this was around the time when, TikTok and all these apps started to, become bigger as well. And my first video was actually just like a video with her, where we just talk about, us as twins, and it wasn't really too much food related. But then I started asking myself, okay, what is it that I can share with people where, I can be consistent and I don't have to go out of my way to create content. It's not something, because I wanted to be consistent, so it had to be something that I do anyway, something, that I enjoy already. And, I think a lot of time we try to go out of our way to create something, but a lot of time it's something that we already have within ourselves, that we don't necessarily see as special. Or, I thought my cooking, I just enjoy cooking, or, I just enjoy being in nature, but I never thought of it being, a profession or something that I can share with other people. But obviously there's a big interest in it, and people start to question their lifestyle, start to question, okay, how can I actually fuel my body to reach optimal health? So there's always something to be learned, and it's a lifelong process as well, which makes it so interesting, because there's never really a point where you can be like, okay, I know everything now. Tomorrow I might find out something else that completely changes what I know about food, what I know about nature now. And this is what I love about it so much as well. It's a lifelong process.
I guess, how did you kind of transition as well, and like what was some of the stuff you were maybe eating before, and like what made that transition sorry what made that transition smooth, I guess, or maybe it wasn't smooth?
Yeah, it was, to be honest, it was quite smooth. I ate a normal standard, I grew up in Germany, German diet. I guess it's similar to the British diet. I didn't eat special in any particular way. My dad is from Nigeria, so he would always cook from scratch though. Like, we wouldn't really eat like processed food. He would always cook from scratch, and he would always come up with something, but we didn't really, we didn't, I don't know, leave meat out of our diet, or fish out of our diet, or dairy out of our diet. Would we eat anything? But it would always be prepared freshly from scratch. I think this had a really big impact, thinking back now, because now here, how other people might have like grown up in this part of the world, and it's not a normal thing that you prepare everything from scratch. So I think this had a big impact. And again, it was my sister who went plant-based when we were like, I think 13 or 14. And for me, I kind of looked down on her, and I was like, oh, why are you doing that? Like, I don't know. I felt like, I felt it was the wrong thing to do. I was like, oh, it's not really for us, like plant-based. No, it doesn't really align with our body. But it served her really well. Her skin looked really good, and I could no longer deny it. Like, I saw her, and it just, I don't know, treated her, served her body really well. So I was like, maybe I should give that a try as well. So I just gave it a try, and my mum and my sister turned plant-based at the same time. Obviously, I was 13, 14. My mum would cook a lot. And so, yeah, a lot of the time when they started cooking, they started including more plant-based dishes. And I realized it's actually not that bad. It actually tastes quite good. And I started feeling lighter. My body started to change a bit. My body composition started to change a bit. My skin started to really change a lot as well. It was around the time I was 14, 15, 16. I was going through puberty. So, like, my skin started to improve a lot, and it gave me a lot of self-confidence. And I was playing football. Like, a big part of my life was football around this time, and I started feeling more athletic. I was more flexible. I was quicker because I was lighter as well. So I realized there's a lot of benefits to it. So I started including it more in my lifestyle, and it just became part of who I am. And yeah, so it was quite a gradual transition. It wasn't really force anything. For me, it's something that, you have to learn over time, because if you're cutting out something like meat and you replace it, let's say, with a potato, it's not the adequate replacement. So you're cutting out meat, you're cutting out amino acids, proteins, you're cutting out healthy fats. So you need to replace it with healthy fats, with other sources of amino acids. So it's something you need to learn over time, which is why I'm still learning to this day. and I would say it's a lifelong process, as I said before.
Thank you. I guess also I've heard that you have said that foraging is a source of or a way of rebelling. What do you mean by that? You know, like what does foraging? Why is foraging like seen as a sense of rebellion or act of rebellion?
I think it's a lot about taking back power and realizing that there's certain constructs in the world that we live in today that people feel like they have to rely on when they really like they don't. Do you know what I mean? So things like pharmaceutical medicines, for example, of course they help people, and I'm not saying don't use pharmaceutical medicines. I'm not a doctor, so, but there's plenty of natural alternatives out there right on your doorstep, and it's just empowering, you know. Like for example, if you have a cold, you don't need to run and get medicine from the cabinet or from the pharmacy. Like there's plenty of plants that you can use, and you can actually go outside and collect them for free. So it's really about taking back power, realizing that we don't have to rely on certain constructs that are set up for us. And even with regards to food as well, of course, like in the UK, you can't solely survive on forage foods. But there's a lot that you can go out and forage, and it's actually a beautiful process being able to go out there, connect, and then you have a lot more respect for food and medicine because you realize just how much it takes for these things to grow and just how sacred these things are as well. And I think a big part of our foraging practice is, you know, respect and connection with the land, because plants are beautiful, like sentient beings. And they're not just medicine and food, they're teachers, and they're a lot more as well. So I think, really having that respect and connection is important. And that's also part of the rebellion, because it makes you feel like you're part of something else, part of something bigger. And I think as people that live in the city, I feel like we can be very disconnected sometimes, but we have to reestablish that connection. And this helped me a lot with a lot of issues that I've faced. So I think a lot of people can also relate to that. So yeah.
I noticed as well in your post online and stuff as well, you kind of give thanks to Mother Earth, and
Yeah.
there's a lot of affirmations and words of encouragement.
Yeah.
Is there something that is important about, incorporating that within your
Yeah.
practice as well? And how does that connect even?
So I think when people talk about foraging, they think, oh, you just go out and then you pick what you want, you take what you want, and then you go home and then you use it. But it doesn't work like that, because, as I said, plants are living beings, and this has been proven time and time again. It's not a question of it's they are, like there's no doubt about it. So having respect for them and treating them like living beings is really important, especially if you're someone that wants to make medicine with forage plants, because the medicine that you make when you create a bond and a connection with plants, and even asking for permission, you can't just go up to a plant and take. You wouldn't go into someone's house and just take something without asking. And you wouldn't just like, if you have a friendship with someone, it has to be two ways, right? You don't want to, if you have a friend and you're always making the effort to call them and be there for them, and they're not reciprocating that, you may think a bit like, oh, like, are they really my friend? So it's the same thing. We can't just use plants as commodities. They're living, breathing, sentient beings. And a lot of plants hold millennia of knowledge. So there's trees that are thousands of years old. I think the oldest yew tree is something like 3,000 years old. So you can imagine just how much knowledge and power that tree holds. And there's certain plant species that are like millions of years old. So all of that information is passed down through generations. So we can't just come and think that they belong to us, because actually nothing on the planet belongs to us. We're part of the planet, we're part of nature, we are nature. So I also think that's important, establishing that connection and realizing that there's a big disconnect between ourselves and the world around us, and just realizing that we are made up of the same things as these plants. So having respect the same way you'd have respect for other people is important. And helping the environment around you thrive as well. So like restorative foraging or ethical foraging. So just being mindful when you go to somewhere, if that plant looks sparse or there's not a lot of it around, don't take it. Just be grateful it's there. And establish connection and give thanks, because there's a lot that plants give us. We eat plants, people eat animals that eat plants. The air that we breathe is a byproduct of plants. Our fibers are made from plants, our houses are made from plants. So as humans, we couldn't survive without plants, but I'm pretty sure that they could probably survive without us. So just having that respect and appreciation is a really important part of our practice. Asking for permission, being a voice for nature as well, because plants can't talk with words and language. So as advocates and as people that benefit from nature, we also have to give thanks and give back. So, yeah.
I like that approach, especially because I guess with nature generally, a lot of people focus on like, the animals, maybe even the trees and, all the other stuff. But no one really looks into plants or like botany or like wildflowers and stuff. Like it kind of just like, even on the pavement, the ones that are coming through, people are just like, oh yeah, a little plant. But like, it's like, that's magical, like.
And that's what excites us. Like,
Yeah.
we'll just be walking down the road and we see like, for example, there's a plant called plantain and it's everywhere. And we're like, oh, there's plantain. And it's really beautiful because it reminds you that nothing can stop nature. Even though we have all these big buildings around us and humans have made their mark, like nature's not going anywhere. Plants are not going anywhere. And it's a beautiful reminder. So, yeah.
Sorry, just have a little bit of a sip here.
I think I've got some too.
Nice hibiscus.
So Rhiannon, in terms of even like the advice and the tips that you just shared there, even, and you seem quite knowledgeable, like how did you kind of embark on this journey, other than, because I know Jason said you was the one that first took that step and you had already had your platform. So I guess what inspired you to kind of create this platform and embark on this journey?
I think, it was kind of like a knock-on of things. So I always been really interested in science and the human body. Like, I wasn't too great at school, but I always did good in science. Like, I love science. I find it really interesting. And then I did my bachelor's degree and I learned a lot of chemistry and biochemistry. And I think also, like, my mum she was a bit ill for a while, and she had like a slip disc in her spine. And there was a point where she couldn't walk and she was on so much medication. And then she would have to take this other pill to counteract that pill. And then, like, I think from there, my distrust of the pharmaceutical industry started. And I just started to question a lot of things. Like, why do you have to take one pill to counteract another pill? And then you got all these symptoms and then you end up worse than you were in the first place. And then, then I started to become a lot more interested in like plant medicine. And then, as I said, I tried, I had a psychedelic experience with a very sacred plant. It's a substance called DMT, derived from plants. And that experience just opened me up a lot more to everything around me. And then, I think I started to spend a lot more time in nature. And then, this was around the time that we met. And then I think when you're with someone who shares the same passions as you two, it just kind of ignites and it amplifies. And then, I think I just started to read a lot more books. I started to do a lot more of my own research. One thing that university taught me is that you have the power to learn anything you want on your own accord, because we have access to the internet, we have access to books. And actually during university, I feel like most of the things I learned was through independent study. It wasn't through going to lectures. To be honest, I didn't even attend like most of my lectures. I think it just started from there. If you have a passion for something and you want to learn and you know how to learn, then you can learn anything you want. So I think a lot of people think that I've attended like some sort of university to study plants, but I really haven't. It's all from like love and also learning from plants. As I said, plants are teachers as well. So it's not just about reading books and looking online, it's going out there, developing relationships, maybe even connecting with elders or other people who inspire you and learning from them as well. I think that's important, like finding people that inspire you and then looking at their work and see like what you can learn from them. So yeah.
Also, I guess with children as well, specifically, is there any like herbs or stuff that you would say work really well?
I mean, it depends, like what for. But I think looking at more like gentle plants, so something like a chamomile or maybe even lavender, or like these, or even like plants that you would use as foods. So things like ginger, is going to be safe for children in small amounts, or dandelion. But it's just, yeah, making sure that you do your research, obviously, because you don't want to introduce anything harmful for your children. But I mean, if you're going to give your child cowpole, then, like, don't be afraid to work with plant medicine with your children as well. So, yeah.
Funny enough, I bought one of these products from you and I sent it to someone I know. You offer like alternatives to nicotine smoking.
Yeah.
Which I found like really interesting, especially because I actually grew up and I used to smoke cannabis, not the most natural forms, from my own experience as well and understanding, and even growing some myself to an extent, and understanding how the plant, grows, etc., etc. I guess what I noticed from my own experience is that, nicotine is what also makes the smoking quite more addictive.
Yeah.
And I guess seeing that on your website that you had this alternative, one person came to mind straight away, and I was like, oh, maybe there's hope.
Yeah.
Maybe there's hope for this person
Yeah.
to try and a more natural way of smoking. And
yeah,
I did send that to them as a gift.
okay.
But,
And what was the response?
Well, they're not from here originally,
Okay.
so they were like, "Oh, you sent me a tobacco leaf," and I was like, maybe you didn't read the read it all, but I was like, okay, at least it's an alternative, and maybe I'd never got to speak to them about it, but maybe that kind of made a difference in their smoking experience. But I definitely wanted to try and share that product with someone else that I know that smokes a lot, and a healthier kind of alternative. So what is the difference as well?
So like, I just want to make it clear that I don't condone smoking like on a regular basis. Like, any form of smoke is harmful for the body, so it's not that I'm telling people who don't smoke to start smoking. It's more of, if you're someone that smokes cigarettes or tobacco and you want to stop, it's a good bridge for you. Because I think a lot of the time, I used to smoke as well, when I was a teenager and when I was younger. And for me, it was more of like the act of smoking, like putting the cigarette in your mouth and lighting it and then like taking that breath. So it's finding a replacement that isn't got that addictive quality in it to then get you to eventually stop. Or if you're someone who does smoke herb, like, it's a good replacement for tobacco. And yeah, it's just looking at plants in a different way, because there are so many plants that you can smoke, but most people don't even know that. They just think that tobacco is the only smokable plant. So yeah, it's just a product that can help people to eventually stop smoking. Yeah.
I guess, what's the effects and the uses, especially like for also parents and stuff? I know there's a lot of parents that smoke, and on that journey of smoking, and maybe when they then know they're pregnant or when they have their child, it then becomes like, I guess, a challenge as well of they want to stop, but it's quite hard for them. I guess also with that kind of having the children around kind of in their mind, like, what's some of the effects and uses that this product can.
So the actual herbs themselves, when you smoke them, they don't really alter. They don't have the same effect as maybe tobacco or marijuana. I guess they just help you to calm down a bit. So there's a plant in there called mugwort, and that's known for, calming the nervous system and helping with sleep. So there's things like that. I still wouldn't recommend smoking it around children just for them to breathe it in. I don't really know what the effects would be of that. It's not a product that's aimed for children. If you want to make a tea with it, that's great. You can also make a tea with it. That's fine. But yeah, I also probably wouldn't recommend smoking it while you're pregnant, just because there's no research done on that. So I wouldn't condone it, but I would definitely say it's a much better alternative to smoking tobacco. So yeah.
So, Jason, you have
Yeah.
some like amazing foods and stuff that you share that are plant-based. What are some of your favorites? And I guess,
Wow.
can you share a bit more about like your ebook
Of
as
course,
well?
of course. I guess it depends. So I always like to start my day with fruit. Um, and that is usually something, whatever's in season, really. I prefer something not too sweet to start my day. So if it's summer, I'm on watermelon. Yeah, I'll just eat watermelon most of the time. To start my day, because it's something that's really easy to digest. And after, when we go to sleep, we're going into a fast. So we're breaking our fast with the first meal that we eat, as well as called breakfast. And I like for it to be something really mild. So after you've been on a long fast, so if I would go to sleep or let's say I had my last meal at 8 p.m. or 9 p.m. and then I'll break my fast in the morning around 10 a.m., 11 a.m. That's at least 14, 15 hours of fasting. So for me personally, it doesn't work if I break it with something really heavy. So I start with something light, like a fruit. Right now is pears, because pears are still in season. Some citrus fruits are in season right now as well, mandarin or so. And then after that, I would usually have like a porridge. It's usually some type of ancient grain, so it's usually either quinoa, teff. I love teff. Amaranth is amazing as well. And I usually blend that with healthy fats, so coconuts, and I also use healthy fats and amino acids in the forms of hemp seeds and pumpkin seeds. Those kind of seeds are usually mixed in some sea moss as well. So it's usually a very rich porridge, and I usually pay attention as well to the micro and the macronutrients. So I want it to be kind of similar to, let's say, if I had an egg omelette or so kind of similar to the nutrients that I would get from an egg omelette, because just because I don't consume eggs, it doesn't mean that I would say it's not a nutritious food, that, it's got a lot of nutrients. And if you cut that out, you need to replace that with the right nutrients. So yeah, my porridge would usually be quite fulfilling. And then throughout the day, I would snack on, nuts and some fruit. And then later on in the evening, I'd usually have a very balanced meal. So sweet potato with some leafy greens and some sort of legumes, so chickpeas or butter beans and avocado. So it's usually, I pretty much eat like this every single day. It doesn't really change much. And at the weekend, maybe I'll play around a bit more. But I know that this serves me really well, and I know it's quick. I don't have to prepare something for too long, because, we live in London. We don't have a lot of time, to prepare our meals. But I know that works really well for me. With that being said, her body, for instance, is completely different to mine. So she would have to find something that works for her. Just because it works for me doesn't mean that it works for her. We're always unique as our own fingerprints. So we need to find out what works for us individually. Yeah.
And can you touch a bit more on like your ebook as well?
Of course,
How did
yeah.
you personally doing what you described as in your routines and stuff, then transform into creating an ebook of recipes and stuff?
Yeah, so it started with mainly with when I first started the alkaline plant-based diet, because there's a lot of people sharing plant-based recipes these days. The alkaline diet in particular is very specific. So there's a certain list of foods that we use that serve our bodies really well. In particular, it's aimed at people of African origin. So for melanated people, using foods that are native to Africa, foods that are native to the Caribbean, foods that are native to Africa, because these are the foods that our DNA works well with. This is what our ancestors have been using for several thousands of years. So we know these foods work really well with our background. And yeah, it's a really particular lifestyle. So we started experimenting a bit with the foods, and we've got a bit creative with it, and we wanted to kind of often find replacements for the foods that we love so much. So let's say mac and cheese, for instance. I used to love mac and cheese, but I wanted to find a way of creating it in a way that serves my body well, using alkaline plant-based foods. So instead of the cheese, we would come up with something, cheese. What does cheese actually have? Cheese, it's got a lot of fat, so we wanted to use something like sea moss or hemp seeds, which contains a lot of healthy fats, and the amino acids. So we use like chickpea powder. So we get really creative. It kind of is like an alchemy process, because you use all these different ingredients to create something that you come up with that serves you really well. And then I started sharing it online, and there was just a big interest for it, because people thought that it was really interesting and people wanted to try it for themselves. And people just started asking me, okay, can you write these recipes down? And then this was, I think, during lockdown, I started writing down the recipes. I turned it into an ebook. And I think it was over 2-3 years now that I started writing them down. And this was kind of like the breakthrough, because then I could finally share it with people as well, for them to recreate the recipes. This is how it all came about. And there's definitely one or two in there that are my favorite recipes. Like, I love a teff porridge. I think there's nothing better to start your day, for me at least. And I love a good chickpea curry with some flatbread, maybe some quinoa on the side, some avocado on the side. I think, there's nothing that comes close to it.
Yeah, I do notice as well, looking at some of your pictures and videos and stuff, the plate is always so colorful.
Yeah, it's important. Yeah, it's very important.
So many people now as well are, as you mentioned as well, trying to become more healthy and nutritious. But let's be real, like, it's quite expensive.
Of
So,
course,
like families
yeah.
maybe, or that have like 3 or 5 kids, and they want to like get into having an alkaline diet, a
Yeah.
plant-based diet, what's some of the ways that they can try to transition and move towards that with like a low budget?
Yeah, I think a lot of the time it's really, there's the alkaline diet. You don't have to take that as a script, as a Bible. It's a guide. Even Dr. Sebi called it a guide. So you can use that as an inspiration, and then see what grows locally in your area. Because again, it was made for people of African Caribbean origin, with the foods local to this area. But if you live in England, for example, maybe there are some herbs, for instance plantain, that maybe he didn't include because it's not native to that part of the world, but they're native to this part of the world. So really, it's about finding your local foods that you have in your area. When you go to your local Tesco, when you go to your local Sainsbury's, what can you find? There's walnuts. I can find walnuts anywhere here. I can find any type of nuts really here in any supermarket that I go to. I can find quinoa at any supermarket these days. So it's something that you can find in your local supermarket. I can find any type of watercress, any type of wild rocket, any type of spinach. So finding the local foods that work well for you, that are cost effective. You can find 6, 7, 8 organic apples for £1.50, £2 in your local supermarket. So this can be your breakfast. It doesn't have to be a tropical mango all the time, or the seeded grapes that got imported from, I don't know, Peru or so. It can be something that grows local. That's why a lot of the time these days we just go to the farmers market, our local farmers market on a Sunday, and we've used the foods that grow in our local area. In my opinion, this is the closest you can get to the people that grow your food, because at the end of the day, the people that grow your food control your life. There's a saying, he who controls your food controls your life. So you want to get as close to the people as possible that actually grow your food, because they know what they use to grow this food. They know the soil conditions that the food grew in. They know what they sprayed on the food. So you want to speak to those people. If you can't grow your own food, at least find out to get as close to the source of your of the people that are growing your food as possible. So going to your local farmers market, seeing what's in season, is usually the best that you can do to find cost-effective alternatives to I don't know, a tropical mango or a papaya or soursop.
So I noticed as well on your Instagram you recently became an uncle. So congratulations
Thank
to
you.
that. Yeah.
Thank you.
So what was some I noticed as well actually one of the things I noticed specifically was a milk alternative you were
Right,
sharing
right.
around your sister and her pregnancy journey.
Yeah.
What was some of the foods I guess and things that helped her along her pregnancy journey?
Yeah, so coming back to that again, I'd say that it's really important, for instance, that the plant-based diet works for me. She's been plant-based for longer than me, but during her pregnancy, she started including fish, for example, again, which is something that, I think you just have to be open to listen to your body, what your body needs in that moment in time. And just because a plant-based diet works really well for me right now, when I'm in my, like I'm 26, in my mid-20s, that doesn't mean that when I'm 40, I'm going to be eating exactly that diet. Especially for women, you produce a lot of different hormones at different stages in your life, so you have to listen to your body and you have to be honest with yourself. And I think that's something I learned from my sister as well. And she didn't, for instance, she probably only had fish 2 or 3 times throughout her pregnancy, but it's something she said, I feel like my body needs it right now. So she started including it, and I think that's a really important step towards not following lifestyle just because you kind of feel trapped in it. And let's say, for instance, you're plant-based and you kind of feel like you put a cage around yourself and you can't be anything else ever in your life. So I think that's a really important thing to remember as well. But in general, she had a lot of fruit. She had a lot of fruit. She lost fruit. She doesn't drink milk. Dairy doesn't work with her at all. So we wanted to find a milk alternative. And this is when we came up with a really interesting alternative as well, where we used foods like chayote squash to create the milk alternative. And again, we looked at the profile or the macronutrients and micronutrients of milk. What does milk contain, and how can we replace it using plant-based foods? And there's a nutrient called B9 or folate, which pregnant women need a lot of, because it helps prevent birth defects and it helps with the development of the spine of the newborn. So we try to find foods that contain a lot of folate, B9, that's easily absorbable. So we found that chayote squash contains a lot, and we actually, in an old place where I used to live, we had it growing in our garden. So it was something, that is easy to grow here. And you can actually grow that in the UK, and it contains that she specifically needed in that period of her life. And this is how we created the milk alternative. But yeah, it's really often just about looking at the biological, the macronutrients and the micronutrients, seeing what do I actually need in that period of my life, what is serving me well, and then coming up with alternatives, just being really creative. And this is how we found out about so many foods that, when we grew up, we just used to look at them with like, I don't know, at a squash, I'll just look at it and I'll be like, I'm not touching that. Do you know what I mean? I don't know. I think that's why a lot of the time I try to create really colorful plates as well, because in our age group, oftentimes when people would see a mushroom or so, they'd be like, I'm not eating mushrooms. I'm not touching a mushroom. So, you have to create it in a really nice, colorful way for people to see, oh, that actually looks nice. Like, that doesn't mean that I eat like this every single day. I don't every single day create a plate that looks so beautiful, artistic. It's something sometimes that I share with people to show them, look, you can create really nice things with healthy plant-based foods, but that doesn't mean that, I eat like this every single day. Sometimes it's a simple meal with a few things on there. They don't always look artistic and beautiful, but this is to kind of show people you can do it as well. It can look nice and it can taste amazing as well, using a mushroom instead of chicken or so.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. So Rhiannon, I guess you spoke a bit about it earlier too, in terms of alternatives to pharmaceutical kind of products. I know with parenting and parents as well, generally, going outside with your children, cuts, grays,
Yeah.
and these types of little things that do happen. Is there any advice you'd give around like some of the stuff that can be used when, like, maybe being stung by some nettle, or, like, well, some of the things that outside are already ready for us to use?
Yeah, absolutely. So I find it like actually exciting as well. Like if you get stung by nettles, oh, that sounds weird, but no, because of like I get excited about the plants that you can use. So there's one plant that we mentioned before. It's called plantain. It's a vulnerary, and this basically is a category of plants that help with wound healing. So you can literally, if you're outside, you don't even need any tools or anything. You can just give the plantain a little wipe down if you want, put it in your mouth, chew it up, and you make something called a spit poultice. So actually saliva also has its own healing properties, but then you mix with the plantain and then you just put it on the little sting that you got, and the pain goes away, because it's also I forgot the word, but it basically helps with pain. So it helps to take the pain away. It helps with wound healing. And actually, if you get like a splinter, or like say you get a bee sting or something embedded in your body, you can put the plantain on top of it, maybe put a plaster or a band-aid, and then what it does is it actually draws the debris, because plantain is a very good drawing agent. And this is one of its affinities inside the body as well, but also outside. So it helps to draw anything that's embedded in the skin out. There's another plant called yarrow. You'll find it more in the summertime. You can see the little yarrow leaves now, so they look quite feathery. I actually saw some out there in your garden. They're really pretty, and they're quite easy to identify. But when the flowers start to come out, and you also can use the leaves as well, but it's really good at stopping bleeding. Like, it's amazing at stopping bleeding, like even really deep wounds. So basically what it does is when you put the yarrow onto the wound, it helps the blood to coagulate. So it basically will help your blood to clot. So like when you get a scab, that's like coagulated blood. So it basically speeds up that process. So yeah, there's loads of little things that you can use out there. There's also, a lot of people know about dock leaves. When I was younger, I heard that if you get stung by nettles, you can rub some dock leaf on there. But actually plantain is better, but dock leaves you can use as well. So I also think that's part of the excitement as well, is finding these little things. And I think it's exciting for children as well. And then it takes that fear away from them, because something like nettles, I was always afraid of as a child, like, because you don't want to get stung, but it's not the end of the world. And if you do, then there's something that you can use. And actually nettle stings can be really good for the body. So if you have like arthritis, or you have stagnant blood, if you get stung by nettles, it helps to move that blood, and it helps to ease pain as well. So it's not a bad thing to be stung by nettles. It
Wouldn't
can
the
be a good
Romans
thing.
do that as well?
Yeah, they would whip themselves with there's a word for, I can't remember the process, but it's basically where you whip yourselves with nettles to help with pain and to increase blood flow in that area. So yeah.
Wow, I didn't know that one.
Yeah.
But that's quite interesting, that practice, and it does make sense. I know like nettles edible as well, and
yeah.
I also was afraid of nettles when I was growing up. In
I think we all were.
my mum's house, her garden often would overgrow, and all I would see in there was just nettles.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, how am I gonna get to my trampoline?
Yeah, right, exactly.
Take over.
We call them, like, people like to say they're the thugs of the forest.
Yeah.
But they're our friends. And actually there's ways that you can, like, in a lot of our videos we hold nettles, and people are like, how do you hold it without getting stung? And it's like, there's ways to interact with the plant without getting stung. I think that nettles is a plant that wants to be recognized, and they don't just want to be ignored. So that's why if you just brush past them, they're going to let you know that they're there. But if you hold them with intention and you touch them in the right way, they don't sting you. So yeah, that just goes back to there being a living, conscious being that resides in the plants. So yeah.
It also goes back to, there's a lot of folklore around these plants as well, which is quite interesting. There's a lot of like Celtic folklore, especially here in the UK, around certain plants that will teach us a lot as well, and they're just stories that we've kind of forgotten over the last few generations. But this is an interesting way for children as well to learn about these plants. There's a good example is cleavers, for example, which is something that we all know in the UK, because it's just something, you'd throw on, I don't know, someone if you want to annoy them, because they cleave onto you, they stick onto you. They got these little hooks, and there's a Celtic saying that if you consume at this time of the year, spring, for 7 weeks, you'll be so beautiful at the end of spring that everyone will fall in love with you. And actually, when I heard it for the first time, I was like, okay, like, why would they say this? It's like funny, like, I don't know, just a funny story. But if you look at it from a biological perspective, again, it makes sense because it's actually really good for the lymphatic system. So it activates the lymphatic system after the winter. During winter, our lymphatic system gets really sluggish because we don't move as much, we don't spend as much time in nature, we're just indoors, we don't really move our body, and our lymphatic system needs to be moved to activate it. And the lymphatic system is responsible for removing the rubbish out of our body, the poison out of our body. So imagine in winter, when it becomes really sluggish, we don't move it as much, we actually accumulate a lot of the waste in our body. So cleavers actually then helps to get that out of our lymphatic system, the sluggishness, everything out of our lymphatic system. So if you feel good from the inside, and if you get rid of the poisons inside, it probably also has an effect on the way you look. You probably have a different type of glow if you consume more of that and your lymphatic system is very active and very strong. So this is probably why the Celtic people used to say that it will make you really beautiful, because people that consumed it a lot maybe had a stronger lymphatic system, and maybe they were able of getting rid of the waste in your system a lot better. So there's usually always a meaning behind it. There's also something about other trees that you wanna really want to look into. Folklore is a really good way for children to learn about trees and plants in general, and to connect them to these plants.
I guess as you touch on children as well, foraging can be something that is scary for some people, and even me, when I think about when I first mushroom forage, for instance, that was something that I was like, I was a bit nervous, but going to someone that knew more, it really helped. But, with children specifically as well, like, I guess, what's some of the best ways to try to introduce that with children where it's safe as well?
I would definitely say, yeah, attending like foraging sessions or walks with people who have the knowledge and can share that. Like with our walks, we let children come for free, so children are always welcome. But I would definitely say, start by introducing the plants that don't have any poisonous lookalikes. So part of what we teach are obviously plant ID, but also if plants have poisonous lookalikes. And then also just plants that they're already familiar with. Like most children know dandelions. They know the pretty yellow flowers, or the ones that you can blow, or nettles. So it's just starting with things that they're already familiar with and then building up that knowledge from there. But there's really nothing to be afraid of. It's just approaching it with a little bit of caution, and then also having your knowledge. So get your books, watch your YouTube videos, and then get outside. And also it's not always about harvesting and collecting. You can just go out and then learn. You don't have to take anything home with you. You don't have to consume anything. But then when you feel a bit more confident and you feel like, oh, my child's actually, learning and getting more confident, then you can say, oh, maybe let's taste it now.
Yeah.
So building up that confidence within them and giving them the right skills and the knowledge, and then, yeah, just going from there,
Foraging is a lot more about actually looking, opening your eyes, rather than it is about finding things. We always think, okay, we need to fill up that basket with all these plants and all these herbs, but really it's just about being in nature, looking what's in season, what can I see, what changed from 2 weeks ago. If you go into the woods now, it's a really interesting period, because I don't know, maybe 4 weeks ago a lot of the things wouldn't even be out, and now you're like, okay, all these new shoots coming up, okay, what does that mean, what does that indicate? Do they actually, maybe that's an indication, maybe this is what I need in my body right now. There's a lot of spring greens coming up right now, so maybe this is a good indication. This time of the year we should be consuming a lot of leafy greens. So a lot of time foraging is about looking, opening your eyes, not about finding things.
You mentioned that you do walks as well. Is there anything memorable about maybe your first walk, and how can people access coming on your walks?
Yeah, so we usually just post it on our stories on Instagram, and we try to use smaller groups of about, I don't know, 15 to 20 people, because it's quite a personal experience. And yeah, so we usually want to focus on smaller groups. So usually we'll just post on our story, and then the spaces would, yeah, be taken quite quickly. But we're going to do one in April again, which is, yeah, less than 4 weeks away now. And yeah, so we'll probably share a post as well. So it'd either be one of us creates a post or we share it on our stories. And yeah, like we were quite nervous the first time we did a foraging walk together, because it's something that we'd usually just do like us two, or even by ourselves. And now we started sharing it with other people. And yeah, I think you're never really 100% prepared, because you never really know what nature, puts out there. There could be something completely new coming up, and nature's not always the same. What you see today might be completely different tomorrow. Or there might be a new mushroom coming up or so. So we were quite nervous, but it turned out to be amazing, and we felt really fulfilled afterwards. And we definitely said after the first one, we're gonna have to do this all the time now, because we feel so fulfilled. And a good thing as well, we did a festival last year, which was amazing. Yeah, so we came to like an alcohol-free festival, and there were so many people that turned up for it that we didn't expect, and it was a really large group of, don't know how many people, but yeah, the festival, to do a foraging walk at a festival, was amazing. And I didn't really think that is something that, would be possible, but it just showed us that there's a big interest for these things. And even at a place like a festival, people still want to learn these things. And yeah, it just motivated us to do more of them. And yeah, this year we'll be doing quite a lot.
Rhiannon, you share on your website and on your profile stuff about, some of the herbs and stuff that we can use as women specifically to
Yeah.
balance ourselves, like Yoni steaming. And can you share some more about the benefits of
Yeah,
this?
absolutely. So, yeah, you brought up Yoni steaming. So, it's basically a chance, it's kind of like a meditation process that you can have with yourself. First, it's a process where you can connect with yourself, because I think as women, especially, like we see our reproductive system maybe even as a burden sometimes. Like, you get your monthly cycle and you're like, oh, again, or a lot of other things where we feel very disconnected from that part of our body. And our yonis are a portal of life. Like, we bring life into the world. It's so beautiful. And having that deep connection and establishing that you respect yourself is important, and yoni steaming can be a part of that. And yoni steaming is basically where you boil up your herbs in a pot, and then you sit over the herbs, with your yoni, and you have that moment with yourself, and you let the steam rise inside of you into your womb and your reproductive system. And that's a way to deliver those healing plant abilities into your reproductive system, to get those inside of you where you want them to go. So there's a variety of plants in there. So there's one called Paca de Aro, and basically that's great for yeast infections. So it helps to fight candida in the body. There's other plants in there that can help with pain from menstrual cycle or anything else. So it's just, yeah, delivering that plant material exactly where you want it to go. I also have 3 different blends. So one includes a yoni steam. One is for women during when they get their menstrual cycle, and then I have one for women when they have their menopause. So that's more focused around the menopausal symptoms. So there's things like sage in there. There's red clover in there, which has natural estrogen. It produces its own natural estrogen. And then the one for women with their menstrual cycle is to help with pain and balancing hormones throughout the cycle. So yeah, obviously, like, I'm a woman and I feel very connected to other women around me, and yeah, there's things that we can use to help combat some of the issues that we have. So yeah.
Also, like full moon rituals, or herbal baths. Is there also like benefits to that? And how
Absolutely.
can it help? Have you done any of them as well?
Absolutely. So I think being in deep connection with the moon, as anyone, whether you're man or woman, is important, because a lot of our bodies are made up of water. with 60 to 80% water. So just like the tides are controlled by the moon cycle, so are we, and having that connection with the moon is really important. And just it helps you just be more aware of the way that certain things work. And yeah, I think establishing that connection with yourself or even with other people around you, like I've attended certain women's circles, and when I'm going through a really difficult time in my life, just being around other women who are interested in the same thing and want to connect with the natural world around me helps me feel empowered. And yeah, I think it's just a nice thing to do, to break from the norm, to just reconnect you back to yourself, and even creating herbal baths for yourself. It's just like it's self-care. It's part of self-care and self-love. And I think it's important. And then that's ways that you can then incorporate plants in that process as well. So
Thank you so much, guys. You both sell stuff on your websites. Can you just briefly touch on one product that you do offer? I know you've said a few already. Yeah, I'd love to know
Yeah,
about it.
of course. So for me, it will be seaweed. So I'm a big fan of sea moss and bladderwrack. We work with a farm in Ireland. It's a family-run business, and it's organic, lab tested for its nutrients, because the waters are, depleted. There's a lot of pollution, so it's important to test when it comes to seaweeds. That's what we work with, and yeah, so seaweed is our focus, and of course the ebook as well, and
yeah, and I sell a variety of herbal tea blends that we've touched upon. I have a few different ones, and then I have my smoking blend as well. So yeah, if anyone's interested, they can check out the website and find out more.
Cool. Can you just plug yourselves and let us know where we can find it? What's your websites?
of
What's your
course.
handles?
Of course, so I go by The Electric Tribe, and the website is also theelectrictribe.co.uk, and yeah, you're
My handle is at Sacred Herbal Tea, and my website is sacredherbaltea@squarespace.com.
Thank you so much for being here today and sharing the space, guys. I really
Thanks for
appreciate
having
it.
Thank
us.
you. We
Thank
really
you.
enjoyed it.
Thanks
Thank
for
you
the
so
fruits
much.
as well.
Yes, thanks. And the tea.
Yeah,
Thank
thanks.
you.
I'm so fortunate to be able to be facilitating this podcast here. If you are able to donate to Paper Garden, that would be truly appreciated to help them give back more to the community.